Have you ever felt like you're just running on totally empty, pushing through this dense mental fog, or relying on pure willpower just to get through the afternoon? Well, this explainer of the latest neuroscience is absolutely for you. Today, we're decoding the gut-brain axis for recovery and longevity. We are literally looking under the hood of human optimization to discover this microscopic command center that is secretly pulling the strings on how you feel, how you sleep, and how you live.
It's a question so many of us wrestle with every single morning, right? Why are you still tired after 8 hours of sleep? It's incredibly frustrating. That chronic exhaustion, hitting that brutal 3 p.m. wall, the unexplainable anxiety, or even those really intense sugar cravings late at night. You know, our natural instinct in modern society is to just blame ourselves. We frame these feelings as a lack of discipline or just a total failure of willpower. But here's the thing. What the clinical research actually reveals is that these symptoms are not character flaws. No, they are neurochemical signals.
100 million. Think about that for a second. That is the number of nerve cells operating right now in your enteric nervous system, which is located entirely within your gut. Scientists actually refer to this as our second brain, and it's an incredibly advanced, hidden engine that is actively controlling our mood, regulating our daily energy reserves, and even influencing the choices we make every single day. You are not just a brain piloting a body, you're a complex ecosystem. And when this engine misfires, the systemic effects are absolutely profound.
Section 1. The broken engine, the mechanics of dysbiosis. So to really understand this engine, we have to look at the highway it runs on. The gut-brain axis is a bidirectional neurochemical communication highway. It links the enteric nervous system in your gut straight to the central nervous system in your brain, primarily via the vagus nerve and circulating metabolites. And this communication, it runs both ways. Your brain is constantly talking to your gut, which, by the way, is exactly why stress upsets your stomach. And your gut is constantly sending biochemical signals right back up to your brain. It's a continuous loop.
But what happens when that loop gets corrupted? Well, that's dysbiosis. It's basically an imbalance in the gut microbial ecosystem. You get depleted beneficial bacteria and an overgrowth of opportunistic pathogens, which ultimately leads to mucosal barrier failure. Let's think of your gut lining as a highly secure mucosal fortress. Chronic psychological stress, poor sleep, and highly processed diets, they act like a battering ram against that fortress. And when the wall finally breaches, something often called leaky gut, toxic molecules like lipopolysaccharides slip right into your bloodstream, and that triggers widespread systemic inflammation.
And this systemic inflammation, it shows up in your daily life in highly specific, often maddening ways. That brain fog and anxiety you can't shake, it's actually often driven by neurotoxic metabolites crossing the blood-brain barrier. Persistent bloating is just the rapid, premature fermentation of carbohydrates in your small intestine. Even inflammatory skin conditions like rosacea or eczema are directly linked to that systemic leakage we just talked about. And those intractable sugar cravings, that's literally microbial manipulation of your vagus nerve. Your daily struggles aren't in your head. They are direct biological feedback from this underlying microbial imbalance.
Section 2. The vicious cycle: sleep, stress, and serotonin.
Okay, prepare to have your perspective totally shifted. 95% of your body's serotonin is synthesized right there in your gut, not in your brain. Now, serotonin isn't just that feel-good neurotransmitter that stabilizes our mood. It is the vital, absolute prerequisite to melatonin, which is your primary sleep hormone. So if your gut is inflamed and dysbiotic, your serotonin production just plummets. And that means your melatonin production stalls out, making a truly good night's rest biologically out of reach.
But it actually doesn't stop at serotonin. Beneficial microbes also synthesize sleep-promoting GABA to calm down your neural activity. Think of GABA as your central nervous system's primary brake pedal. It's the inhibitory neurotransmitter that lowers anxiety and allows your brain to finally transition into that deep, restorative, slow-wave sleep. If you lack the specific beneficial bacteria that produce GABA, well, your brain stays in a state of wired, hypervigilant exhaustion. You're exhausted, but you just can't power down.
And these elements trap us in a ruthless bidirectional burnout loop. Here's how it plays out. It starts when chronic stress spikes your cortisol levels. That elevated cortisol then physically damages your gut's mucosal lining. As that barrier fails, systemic inflammation lowers your production of serotonin and GABA. Without those crucial neurochemicals, your sleep architecture fragments. You wake up at 3 a.m. and just stare at the ceiling. And ultimately, that sleep loss immediately worsens the gut dysbiosis, which starts the whole vicious cycle all over again.
The severity of this trap is actually pretty striking.
Research shows that circadian rhythm disruption alters your gut microbiome composition within just days. It creates this intense feedback loop where disrupted sleep worsens gut health, which then further disrupts your sleep. So if you've been battling chronic insomnia, your experience is entirely valid. It's not just you. Just a few days of bad sleep literally changes the ecosystem inside you, rapidly draining your body's metabolic harmony.
Section 3. The dopamine trap. Microbiota-driven hunger. Listen to this because there is a massive difference between homeostatic hunger and microbiota-driven hunger. Homeostatic hunger is what we'd consider normal, right? It's driven by your body's actual metabolic need for energy, calories, and nutrients. But microbiota-driven hunger? That is driven by neuroactive metabolites secreted by opportunistic microbes just to ensure their own survival. They are essentially hacking your communication highway to demand the exact food they thrive on, completely bypassing what you, the host body, actually need.
And we can actually identify the specific culprits here. Opportunistic microbes like the yeast Candida albicans and the bacteria Bacteroides vulgaris, they literally hijack your cravings for simple sugars. These rogue microbes thrive exclusively on glucose. So, to secure their ideal environment, they secrete compounds that cross the blood-brain barrier and artificially stimulate your brain's reward centers. It's wild. They literally make you crave the very things that destroy your gut barrier.
Let's look at the exact step-by-step pathway of that biological hijack. Because of a modern diet, Bacteroides vulgaris overgrows. As it multiplies, it produces excess pantothenic acid, which then stimulates the GLP-1 hormone right in your gut. That gut signal triggers your liver to secrete a hormone called FGF21, which finally travels all the way up to your brain, altering your hypothalamus to physically crave more sugar. So next time you're beating yourself up over a craving, remember, you aren't fighting a lack of willpower, you are fighting a microscopic chemical override.
Section 4. The Gut Reset Protocol. Repairing the Command Center. All right, here is the core empowering principle we need to take away from this explainer. Microbial diversity is the single best predictor of gut-related sleep quality, emotional resilience, and overall longevity. The ultimate goal here isn't just to buy some random probiotic supplement off the shelf. It's about cultivating a rich, diverse rainforest of microbials in your gut. It's this diversity that restores the production of those vital anti-inflammatory short-chain fatty acids that naturally heal your whole system.
So how do we actually achieve that? Well, here is your clinical lifestyle protocol. First, aim to eat 30 or more different plant fibers every week. Diversity on your plate literally creates diversity in your gut. Next, incorporate daily fermented foods like kefir or sauerkraut to naturally introduce live beneficial bacteria. Sync your circadian rhythms by getting outside for morning sunlight to set that biological clock. Engage in about 150 to 270 minutes of exercise per week, which independently boosts microbiome health. Drastically reduce highly processed foods and simple sugars to essentially starve out those opportunistic pathogens. And finally, limit unnecessary antibiotic exposure. These are the daily, actionable habits that rebuild your mucosal fortress.
The impact of your lifestyle on this diversity is staggering. For instance, a high-sugar processed diet leaves you with super low diversity, basically a vulnerable ecosystem that is highly prone to burnout. A standard active lifestyle, that gets you to moderate diversity. But implementing that 30-plus plant fibers weekly protocol pushes you to maximum microbial diversity. Adding diverse plant fibers acts as a prebiotic fertilizer. It naturally starves out the pathogens while feeding the exact microbes that produce your serotonin, your GABA, and your deep, restorative sleep.
I really want to emphasize this. You are not broken. Your system is simply miscalibrated. You are a thriving, highly responsive ecosystem. Look, the modern world is incredibly hard on our biology. But by understanding the neuroscience of the gut-brain axis, you can finally drop that heavy guilt over your daily burnout. Your body is a highly advanced biological machine, and it is simply waiting for you to provide the right inputs so it can do what it does best, heal itself.
So I'll leave you with this question. Now that you know you're feeding trillions of microbes with every single bite, who are you truly feeding today? Are you feeding the opportunistic pathogens that are driving your anxiety, that thick brain fog and exhaustion? Or are you choosing to feed the beneficial ecosystem that builds your emotional resilience, guarantees deep sleep, and promotes longevity? It's a choice we make every day. Keep that neuroscientific perspective in mind for your next meal.